Every weekday morning, this is how thousands of Britons start their day. Many of the people you're watching pay thousands of pounds a year just to be here. And some of them have been doing it for years. Tomorrow, the scene you're seeing now will look much the same. It's interesting to watch, but to do what the people here are doing day after day, perhaps not. While they're getting buses and taxis to take them to work, we're going to meet some rather different people. They too spend a lot of their time on trains, but the lives they lead are very different. This is the rush hour here, on one of Britain's heritage railway lines. 60 years ago it was shut down and abandoned because it was considered to be uneconomic. Fortunately, some of the customers who've used this line for years had other ideas. When the line was closed, tracks were taken up and buildings abandoned. Engines were sold for scrap, and a huge municipal rubbish dump was opened in the middle of what had been a line with a dozen stations connecting several important towns. It took 10 years to get over that, and to acquire one engine, a few coaches, and enough track to show what could be done. 2 weeks before that line opened, the pioneers, who'd already achieved the first of many miracles, allowed me to shoot a film I was producing on their newly laid track. The film was shown around the world, and this wonderful railway, which takes its name from flowers which grow in the fields the trains pass through, has gone from strength to strength. It was this man who first managed to capture and control the power of steam. Others had tried before, but he was able to show that his ideas worked, and he was able to perfect them. When a train of his ran from Stockton to Darlington without any problems, people felt safe and reassured. The steam age had begun. Others wanted to cash in on Stephenson's success, and steam engines were soon being widely used in many different ways. Among the first pioneers, there were those who wanted to abolish horse-drawn transport and offer passengers a more comfortable ride. In due course, the first steam-powered passenger vehicles arrived, and a few of them are still with us. This mobile car was built in 1900. There's a boiler and a water tank under the driver's comfortably padded seat. The tank needs to be refilled after about 15 miles. But unlike many modern cars, this one is still as reliable as the day it was built. When the earliest cars first appeared, like the first trains, they had to be accompanied by a man who walked alongside with a red flag. In 1896, the Locomotives on the Highways Act, as it was called, was repealed. To celebrate that, a number of the newly christened motorists decided to drive from London to Brighton in a commemorative run, and that event still continues today. In the year these scenes were filmed, 500 cars from 18 different countries came here to take part. When Brighton welcomed those first early cars, it was also experimenting with early trains. A local engineer, Magnus Volk, spent his life perfecting his invention and adapting it to meet the needs of the day. For many years it was a major seafront attraction, and it still is today. Now overhauled and updated with help from Heritage Lottery funds, it continues to connect Brighton's one surviving pier with a marina at the other end of the line. At sea, winds and sails had long powered the ships which ruled the waves. But in 1740, that too was about to change. In that year, a Canadian shipping magnate built his first steam-powered ship. He went on to start what has become the Cunard Line. It's now an American-owned multinational corporation, but it continues to build and operate fine ships. And Cunard's personal pioneering work has not been forgotten. At ports where the latest ships often call, from time to time you'll find a survivor from a bygone age. The world's last ocean-going paddle steamer. Waverley was built in 1945 to replace a ship of the same name which was sunk in the war at Dunkirk. Like many ancient craft, over the years she'd fallen into disrepair. When some heritage heroes saw what was happening, they bought her for £1, and with the help of National Lottery funds, she has been restored to the fine condition she's in today. Over the years, ships and trains have often worked together for their mutual benefit. In the new steam-powered age, fish freshly caught in Grimsby could be served at lunchtime in London, opening markets which before had never been accessible. Watercress and other freshly grown crops could be sent to customers in Edinburgh in a matter of hours. And the seaside town of Swanage could welcome holidaymakers who could arrive here by train from wherever they lived. In the 1920s and 30s, Britain's rail network expanded nationwide, and the towns and ports which the network served grew with it. The railway lines people used were not all the same, and they still aren't today. In steam's early days, engineers experimented with different sized engines and different width tracks, but the standard width in use today was generally considered to be best. There were some who wanted to reduce costs by running smaller gauge trains on narrower tracks. In the 1920s, two young racing drivers wanted to build and run their own railway, so they set out to find a suitable site. They came here. There wasn't much here then, but they knew what they wanted to do and thought this area might be right for them. In 1937, the results of their efforts opened for the very first time. What is now the Romney Hythe Gymchurch Railway has continued to be in great demand ever since. While it is now owned and run by a much larger company, its aims remain unchanged, and it's still run with the care and enthusiasm it's always enjoyed. By the end of the 1930s, Britain's expanded rail network was working well. But in 1939, many miles away, one man made moves which were to end all that, and many other things too. In months, the whole world was involved in another war. London's lights were turned off in September 1939. They wouldn't be seen again for 5 years. Children were evacuated from towns and cities. Trains carried guns and tanks. On the Romney-Hythe-Dymchurch line, trains were armed and staff were told to prepare for an invasion. London's residents and visitors went underground, not knowing what to expect. Cities, towns and ports were relentlessly attacked. Southampton, where many of those who were rescued from the beaches of Dunkirk had returned to, had a very rough time. Spitfire aircraft, which had played a major part in the Battle of Britain, were built in a factory on the edge of town, and that didn't help. The war went on for 5 years, and food, clothing, and many other everyday necessities were rationed for far longer than that. When Germany surrendered in 1945, those who'd survived started to realize how much the war had cost. They found themselves in a very different world, and they wanted it to change. Jobs were hard to come by, and life was tough. Many worked in factories, often doing the same thing day after day. Those who had office jobs weren't much better off. Offices then were nothing like they are today. There were no mobile phones, and computers hadn't been invented. Letters were dictated to secretaries or teams of girls who could take notes in shorthand and then type them out in areas which were known as typing pools. Out of working hours, cinemas offered a welcome escape, but you'd probably have to queue to get in. Inside you could relax, watch the ads, and a full supporting program. When the show ended, everyone had to get home, using whatever public transport happened to be available. If you had enough money or lived near London, you could have a night on the town and go up west, where cinemas, theatres and smoke-filled pubs were beginning to welcome back people they'd known before the war. In the 1950s, there was another problem we had to learn to face, and that was smog. The inevitable result of combining exhaust streams from cars and buses with smoke from power stations and thousands of coal-burning fires in homes and factories. It wasn't much fun, and it stopped people going out. But as always, the community spirit which had got people through the war kept things going. Smog or no smog, life would be better soon. The war was too recent for its horrors to be forgotten, and there was a general desire for things to change. It was that feeling which brought two people who many had never heard of before to take up positions and make decisions which would affect us all for years to come. During the war, St Pancras Station had been damaged in the Blitz. Originally opened in 1876 as a luxury hotel with a station attached, Gilbert Scott's magnificent Victorian Gothic building had fallen into disrepair, and plans had been made for it to be demolished. When this man heard about those plans, he vowed to oppose them and preserve a building which he felt was far too good to lose. Many battles were fought and eventually won. A few days before demolition was due to begin, the building was listed for preservation. So today it remains a glorious and now widely used London landmark. At the heart of the building, which is now the London hub for an intercontinental high-speed rail network, his statue stands in pride of place. John Betjeman, poet, author, preservationist and railway enthusiast, an unmistakable heritage hero. The second key figure to emerge at that time had very different views, but decisions he made were to determine the future of the rail network we still use today. After the war, when the then privately owned railway companies were nationalised, he was put in charge of the British Railways Directors Board. He was then asked to prepare a report on the future prospects for Britain's rail network. After months of research to establish the facts, the report was published in 1963. It proposed closing a third of the country's 7,000 railway stations. Passenger services would be withdrawn from many other routes. It was estimated that would save about £80 million a year. On top of all that, 70,000 British Rail jobs would be lost over 3 years. The report encountered opposition from all quarters, but its recommendations were implemented. Towns and villages which had relied on trains for years suddenly found they were cut off. Tracks were removed, engines scrapped, and buildings demolished or left to rot. It took time for the full impact of the decisions which had been made to take effect, but services which had been withdrawn were soon missed. It was then that an army of heritage heroes began to emerge. In the years that followed, thousands of enthusiasts and volunteers rebuilt or replaced what had been lost. 60 years after Dr. Beeching's report was published, we can again enjoy journeys made on lines he axed. First opened in 1885, this railway, like the Waverley, has had its problems. In the 1960s, it was closed by British Rail. Engines were scrapped, buildings became derelict, and miles of track were taken up. It seemed that trains would never run again. Fortunately, there were people who wouldn't give up, and they fought hard to keep the line alive. Today's hugely successful railway is the result of their efforts. Take a train now and you can turn the clock back, escape from the pressures of modern life, and enjoy the beauty of the Poleck Hills. The village of Corfe, with its ancient castle, is one of the most popular stops en route. You can get here by car, but it's a peaceful place which you can easily explore on foot, and the train home stops almost at the door. Every year, thousands of people come to travel on these trains, and plans are in hand to reconnect with the mainline services, so people can travel to London or further afield and make the journeys they used to make 50 years ago.
Please do not attempt to open any carriage door until the train has stopped at the platform.
Today, this line is run by volunteers and a number of full-time staff. They have already achieved miracles and brought the past to life. Swanee's Railway is now back where it belongs, providing a full service to local villages and towns. Like other heritage lines, it also welcomes visiting trains. Every year, at Christmas, they prepare to entertain a very important guest.
Hi there, you having a good Christmas? Oh my God, look at the rum on punch here. Right, hello kids.
On this train, perhaps more than anywhere else in town, the true spirit of Christmas was here for all to see.
Oh, all right, well, we'll let you. You should have high five. Come on, then. Yeah. Five, yeah. Happy Christmas to you. And a happy Christmas to you. Happy Christmas to
In Hampshire, a few miles from Swanee's Railway's Dorset base, there's another railway which has been brought back to life. The Mid-Hampshire Railway is more widely known as the Watercress Line because its trains used to take watercress and other freshly grown local produce to shops and restaurants across the country. Rockley Station still looks much as it did when this picture was taken in its early days. Passengers joining trains here can still see the old station master's house. It's much as it was when he retired and left it for the last time. Steam trains still stop a few yards away, and customers will still get the welcome and excellent service they've come to expect. On this line too, they often welcome visiting trains. Once a year, they run a special train which takes passengers to Alsford, where the Watercress Line has its headquarters. Passengers can then enjoy a day of special events, celebrating the achievements of the town, the railway and the watercress industry.
Yes. Give you a kiss. I'm not giving you a kiss. Look, go at 1, 2, 3. Look.
There's another occasion here it pays not to miss. Every year, Osford remembers what it was like living here during the war. It was a very busy time, coping with unexpected events and preparing for D-Day and the aftermath of Dunkirk kept the whole area busy for months. After exploring Osford, passengers can board a very special train. Volunteers, wearing clothes like those which people wore here at that time, helps to set the scene for what passengers will be able to see en route.
Yeah, mate. Oh! That's what I got. Then
and possibly other areas that report too. In the case of Tamir, you've got West Hampton, we would now know that as Goodwood. But Tamir are basically possibly other areas of passage report too. In the case of Tamir, you've got West Hampton, we would now know that as Goodwood. We have no activity in West Hampton. We're relying on very basic radar called chain home and also the observer.
Right, Kev, let's get a wiggle on. This line. So we should start again. Capture. Right, Kev, let's get a wiggle on. Kev, so let's get a wiggle on. A to M, so we should start again. Capture. To M, A, M, T, I, A, T, I, stop. Oh, excellent. N. That goes wow.
yeah.
Excellent. That goes wow.
Yeah.
So heritage trains, cars and boats are still very much alive. We've seen a few of many success stories. From time to time, there have also been a few failures. For years, this lovely park had an excellent railway. It had been run for years by a very good team. Then, a local council decided to end their contract and take over. For months, no trains have run. Fortunately, a few years ago, I produced a film which included scenes shot on the railway that was here then. So all has not been lost. Miles from here, in another park, which is owned by a different local authority, there's a much more extensive railway. Here they hold a number of events throughout the year, including a steam gala. I went along to see what it was like. As the preservation movement has gained momentum, more and more treasures from Britain's heritage have been rescued and restored. As a result of the combined efforts of thousands of people, often volunteers, who've worked hard for months without much money, they are now available for everyone to enjoy. These happy people will be back here tomorrow. After 60 years making films and television programs around the world, I thought it might be fun to run a railway, and now I do. I commute to it every day. It's 5 paces from my back door. I built it myself over a number of years, not because I'm passionate about trains, but because I'm no good at growing flowers. And when I want a day off, I pop up the road and jump on a train to read and thank our real heritage heroes.